Welcome to Queener Lax, Laxin Poetic. I'm your host, Brice Queener. We're going to talk all things lax on this show with some of the greatest personalities in the sport. Be sure to check out our sponsor, QueenerLax.com, for swag, camps, and clinics. Got questions? Want to hear something? Get in our DMs at QueenerLax. Hey, thanks for listening. And remember, ABC, always be cradling. Welcome, everybody, to Laxin Poetic. Lax News Update. I've quickly realized starting this podcast a few weeks ago, the guests are going to be outstanding. You know, we're talking some of the best people you've ever heard of. And maybe you haven't heard of them. We're going to get some low-key guests on the show, too. We're obviously starting out with some bangers. You know, Bubba Voigt's been on, Dan Group. This week coming up, got Corey Bulken and Marty Ward on my first three-way pod. We were interested how that was going to work. But one thing I realized was people are going to have things in their schedule. And I think Belichick put it well this week. As coaches, we used to kind of be on the day-to-day model, right? You got to be flexible day-to-day. And Belichick, obviously a lax bro, put out there that now we got to be ready for hour by hour. So when guests cancel, I still need some content to get to you guys. So I'm gonna kind of go through the news that I see in the week. There's so many different avenues to look up. There's Twitter, there's the gram, Instagram, IG, whatever you want to call it. Facebook. Actually a lot of cool lax people on Facebook. I'm coming back to Facebook because a lot of the my dad being a coach, my mom being a coach, a lot of the people I love to talk lax with are older than me. They're on Facebook. So Facebook is a good news outlet too. But, your Inside Lacrosses, your IL Women, Lax All-Stars, Lacrosse Bucket, and Lacrosse We Trust. Just Lacrosse, which is Upstate New York website. Kind of peruse those and tell you what I think are the big stories of the week. Start with Twitter, which is my favorite social media medium platform out there. Twitter is by far my favorite. Follow me on Twitter at CoachQ88. QueenerLax is on Twitter as well at QueenerLax. But from the Twitter sphere this week, Corey Bulken's tweet was the tweet heard around the world. He's in a hilarious follow, and the guy's got a ton of history in the game or history experience. He's been all over, and he threw, if you don't follow him, he threw all these cones out and kind of said he's going to start an individual lacrosse training practice and just chuck cones everywhere. And then at the end of the video, I said, that'll work. And, he kind of touched on a subject that I've been talking to a lot of people about. It's just this cone, this Dance Dance revolution. A lot of it's good, some of it bad, a lot of it bad, some of it just not what we've been taught and want to teach. And he brought up a great point when we shot a podcast. It's going to drop on Wednesday about this topic. Just kind of saying like we're the ones when they get to college that are like, that's not going to work what you're doing with your stick there. And Marty Ward tweeted to us, Marty, head coach of Florida Southern, and we all kind of got tweeting back and forth about the cone stuff. So that's how we got the pod going. Again, that's going to drop Wednesday. But if you don't follow him on Twitter, Corey Bulken's really good Twitter follow and Marty Ward. And we said on the pod, we're not against people trying new things. We're not against lacrosse trainers. We just really want to caution that there's maybe better ways to do things. I do utilize a lot of cone work and stuff I do. And, but I've been moving a little bit away from it, trying to get back to just field stuff. I'm a free play guy. You'll hear me talk about that all the time. I'm more into free play, but I'll drop some stuff on those more. The biggest on InsideLacrosse.com, really good story this week about Hopkins. Head coach Peter Milliman, kind of how their whole new staff at Hop. If you're not aware, Coach Petro and his staff left. They've been there a long time. And Pete comes in, and Pete had a lot of success at Cornell, had them in the top 5, I believe number 2 in the country when COVID canceled the season. And with Jeff T, they had a really good chance to win it all, I thought. And it just, I knew I have a lot of respect for Pete. He is kind of one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast. I met Pete a long time ago, but when we played for the Rochester Rattlers together and worked this overnight camp in Vermont. I'm trying to think of the name of it right now. Blanking on it. It was at Green Mountain College, famous camp, Top Gun lacrosse camp. One of the best camps you ever work or play at as a kid. But we would drive, so we would finish the Rattlers game on a Saturday night, wake up on Sunday morning and drive to Vermont. And Pete, that summer really reignited my passion for lacrosse. I'd finished college. College was, we won a lot, but it wasn't what I was used to, I would just say. And so that summer, getting back to talking lax with Upstate people all summer is just kind of, I was like, okay, this is where I'm going with my life. And we would just talk 4 or 5 hours, just straight lax. And so he's just one of those guys where he lives and breathes the game. I knew he'd do well at Hop as soon as he got hired, but the one thing they teach you in the coaching world, or very cliche thing, is don't follow a legend. So he's following Petro as a legend, and Hopkins has, they have challenges. It's a super hard school to get into. It's a super hard school once you're there to do well. And the knock on them is kind of that the campus life isn't what some people want. I mean, they obviously have the best stadium, or one of the best stadiums, and they're in Baltimore. So there's a lot of pluses about the program too, but there are some question marks. And I just didn't know. I was like, oh, that could be tough for Pete. I know you'll do well eventually, but those alums want it right now. And then he hires. So first move, he hires Jameson Kester, and I'm like, okay, here we go. If talking about Twitter, if you follow this guy's Twitter account at UMBC the last couple of years, he's probably put out the best defensive stuff I've seen on Twitter. Right? Jerry Byrne does a lot. I don't even know where he posts his stuff, but the chalk talks are very good. He puts a lot of good drills up, but Jameson was just putting cool stuff out, like stuff I like that really just captivated me. Kind of back to the cone dancing, or cone dance. I just kind of Jameson's stuff is relevant. So that was a huge hire in my mind. And then they hired John Grant Jr. And I'm like, okay, they're going to be great, right? Like the little hesitation I had for Pete, and just knowing, how hard it's going to be there and different things, because in my eyes, the other thing that Hopkins lacks is an offensive cool factor. They had Rabel, they had the Donagers, they've had guys that they've obviously had great players, but it's always been kind of like, it's never been known as an offensive school. It's been more known as like gritty and tough, and they won with defense. When you have the greatest, arguably close defenseman of all time as your coach, and some great defense and some great goaltenders, Hopkins has been known for their defense. They got cool colors, and they got great support. They got great history. But what I would not say their swag factor is high on offense, and I'm not attacking anyone. I'm just saying it hasn't been high. And you go and get the swaggiest offensive player maybe of all time. I said swaggiest. I didn't say greatest. He's up there. I don't know who I rank 1, 2, him or Gary, or I throw Casey in there. I throw Paul in there. I throw Mike in there. But that's kind of my crew that I toy with is who's the GOAT. But he's up there. And he's just, if you've been around Junior, he's just funny, and he knows that he gets it. He knows how to get teams to buy in. He knows everything, right? And so does Pete. So those guys together on the offensive side. Side note, Pete and I win Lake Placid championships almost every summer together. He scores the game winners. We run the ball down to him, throw it to him. We do the hard work. But, Pete offensively, he knows how to play. Junior knows how to play. So that's a great read, though. So that's my thoughts on where they're headed. I can't wait to see them. I think they'll be in a Final Four real soon. But as far as the article goes and why it's cool to read on InsideLacrosse.com is they kind of talk about, they're not in school right now. So all the kids are on Zoom, and I just love for classes. And I just love how Pete is like, hey, we don't want to Zoom them out. We don't want to, just because we haven't met our team yet, how do we build our culture? How do we build our processes? How do we schedule? How do we do all, like, how do they get to know us? How do we know them? The tendency for a new coach would be to over Zoom. And Pete mentioned that because he'd been in the Ivy Leagues for 8 years, he understood, and this has been a pet peeve of mine forever. Fall ball, you're only going to get so much done. When I played for Coach Eric at Georgetown, we would go 3 to 5 days a week. And I remember back then Hopkins was going 6. And everybody's like, man, we're not going enough days. A lot of that, looking back, now that you're on the administrative side, was field availability. Coach didn't bother. Coach was great at not complaining about things, so we didn't know that, like, maybe we didn't have access to the field every day. He didn't want us, probably didn't want us knowing that. Smart. He's a real good team morale guy. Um, but you don't have to overkill fall ball. Pete mentions in this article that maybe it's a blessing in disguise because you don't know, you're not as focused on what player A can do from X. You're more trying to learn, where they're from, how many siblings they got, what they like, so they don't over zoom. They don't do too much. It's a really good read. That's Inside Lacrosse. Okay. The next site I go to a lot is IL Women. Obviously, I coach women's lacrosse at the University of Denver right now. I've been coaching women's lacrosse now for about 7-8 years. Coached men's for about 7-8 years, and now women's for 7-8 years. And um, my mom's still coaching girls lacrosse in upstate New York. My dad coached a little bit. And my sister Sarah's head coach at Pomona, Pitzer colleges, and in California, it's 2 different schools. Look it up, great schools. Little sister Sylvia is at Whittier University. Brett is back coaching as the head coach. Sylvia is in SoCal. What a great place. Brett coached at Q's for a while. So really, I love the women's game more and more every year. I'll talk about this on a separate podcast because I get asked all the time how to coach it, what the differences are, all those things. But they got a cool story up on the #1 recruit, the Wurzburger kids at Carolina now. She made waves as an 8th grader, committing to Syracuse. I believe her dad played there. And then, decided she's from Florida. I don't know what went into it, but decommitted, went to UNC. Really good read. Always fun to read about top recruits and their mindset and their journey and what's going on there. I will say, I really like watching this kid play. Goes hard to the net, passes the ball, finishes, plays hard. We had a clinic in Florida last year that she came to, and I'm always a fan of meeting new lacrosse people. Met her dad, met her, and I was just impressed. It was just a little not nothing. I mean, it was a fun clinic, but it's just a one-off. It's an hour-and-a-half clinic, and the kid was playing super hard, and I always just love that when top players are always playing hard. The story this week on Lax All-Stars that I really enjoyed reading was the dive outs. They have a whole montage highlight video of dive outs. So in lacrosse, as you are all aware, most people who listen to this show are lacrosse fanatics. So if a shot is missed, but if you're new, I'll just break it down for you. If a shot is missed, and it goes out of bounds in our sport, you can race there. And that is not a thing in other sports. It's actually a thing that I think they're toying with in the Olympic rules, because when you miss a shot and the team gets it back, new fans have a hard time with that. Maybe that's why they dropped this, because they're trying to preserve it. I do like it. I do like the end line run out. It is a momentum play. It's the block charge play of basketball and lacrosse. It's like refs want to call it. This is a look at me moment for refs. And that's what I teach my attackers, or our attackers. I hate saying our attackers is, that ref wants to call that, that's their chance to be there. Wall human. Maybe they shouldn't, but they do. So you can't change my opinion on that. They want to call that. So you have to not let them call that. You have to make sure you really extend. Sometimes you got to dive. There's a lot that goes into it. I tweeted back to Lax All-Stars, Brett Queener is the greatest end line run out goalie of all time. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it today. Greatest player at it. What he does better than most people think, he just runs around. He reads plays. And somebody messaged me on Facebook that he'd stolen a man up play, came out at X and stole the ball. Maybe it was scouted. It's never scouted. He can just sense that it's happening. Same with the run outs. So that's a fun thing. We started practicing run outs last year, because one thing, as much as refs love to call it, it's a nerve for coaches if you miss one. So one thing I just can't stand is I have to kind of, discipline or sub out an attacker because they keep losing headline runouts. It's frustrating. It's a momentum changer. So we started practicing it. And when I was at the Hill Academy, Zach Miller and Dallas Bridle and Brendan Bomberry used to do runouts, and they'd pick up different balls in the end line and kind of mess with the hidden ball trick. So I made that a drill last year, and we're going to continue to do that more and more, of just like real simple stuff like, hey, miss a shot, run it out, and then let's work on our hidden ball. Kind of a big twofer guy. If I can get two things in at once, it's fun. Next article I like this week, again on Inside Lacrosse. The vast majority of men's coaches anticipate adding a 2021 prospect. Terry Foy wrote this. Great article. Check it out. I just think it's needed. People freak out in recruiting. Everybody's timeline and process is so different. I mentioned this on Luke Cometti's recruiting podcast recently. Everybody's timeline so different. And the Hill Academy, we had kids committing all the time. I saw the PLL put a story out about Josh Byrne today. His JUCO route, people forget about JUCO. A lot of the best players in the game have gone JUCO and then D1. So there's all different avenues. I mean, if you're doing the right things, you're going to get picked up. You're going to get seen. I truly believe that. Next topic. I will break this down with you weekly. NCAA update. What has the NCAA said about our season coming up? Drum roll, please. Nothing. So I think this will be a weekly thing. You know, it's my thoughts. Everybody asks me, and just like, hey, you got to get through football. There's got to be a basketball tournament. If those things happen, then we're gonna play. I do think we're gonna play. I'm generally more of an optimist on this topic. I've been a pessimist because I don't want to get too in love with. We got a great team in Denver, great kids. I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's just about being back on the field with the kids, young adults, but I don't want to get too hyped about it and then not have it happen. But I do feel like the way we're progressing, it's going to happen this year. But the NCAA hasn't said anything. There was an article, I believe it was on Inside Lacrosse as well, about a tournament this year. That is what I would like to do. Maybe a series of tournaments. Maybe we start a conversation. Maybe we're doing that here. Who knows? We just got to wait. My Just Lacrosse Upstate update. We will do an Upstate update on this show. I think I have rules NCAA wise. I can't really talk about high school prospects' names. But as I went on Just Lacrosse the last couple of days, scrolling up and down, just so proud. Boys and girls committing everywhere. It's just amazing. It is not a big place. Well, I mean, land-wise, it's big. But, not a lot of people. Lacrosse is huge in the other parts of the country now, and we're still holding it down. I love coaching players from everywhere, but I always have an affection for the Upstate. NBA Finals update. It's over. What a run by the Heat. I mean, what a run. Jimmy Buckets. I said on my Twitter last night, thank you, Jimmy Buckets, for making trying cool. It's been a 15-year thing for me. Like I said Lax Bro earlier, I kind of hate the Lax Bro comment or stigma. I like it more now just because he's a bro, I'm a bro, like something like that, like, hey, bro. But I'm not a fan of the like, nobody tries hard in this sport. Bubba Voigt talked about it on our podcast. He's an off-ball player. And the one thing he says is like, he hates how much people don't realize how much he works out and puts into this and trains. And people that are good at this game try hard. I mentioned it again with the top recruit in the country on the women's side. They try hard. So I like that. And I like that Jimmy Buckets is not afraid to call out his teammates for not trying hard, which is very rare and very hard to do. And they saw success from it. And why I watch basketball so much and talk about it and tweet about it, it is so similar to lacrosse. We had Team Zoom this morning. We have this off-ball attacker who's really good at cutting off ball and finding space and doing other things. She plays like Duncan Robinson. I told her. She said she really liked him and Hero and some of the guys in the Heat. I'm like, you play like Duncan Robinson. If you watch him, he just flies around screens looking for ways to play without the ball, and when he gets it, he's effective. So you watch the two-man in the NBA is every possession almost. So it's really how do they set up the triangle off the two-man? Where do they set up the two-man? Those things are all super important and big in basketball and culture-wise. I've thought that basketball mirrors the lacrosse locker room a little bit better than people realize. Like basketball is constantly talking about not getting along. Like other sports really quell that discussion a lot. Basketball, it's in the forefront. You hear about it every year. Like there's fights, there's disagreements. And to me, team sports have that. So it's always neat to hear about team culture and hear how the coaches address it and hear how they try to build it. And the Heat culture is what everybody believes led them to the finals. Really fun. I really think if they had Dragon and Bam healthy the whole run, it would have went 7, but it didn't. Now we got to wait for the NBA next year. But snow update, our final update for our update show. We have snow. It has started snowing, similar to basketball and other sports. Why I'm so into snow is because we get to go skiing. And I believe that skiing makes you a better lacrosse player. I believe that basketball makes you a better lacrosse player. So look for that. You guys can come visit us, come skiing. We'll take you. That's it for the update show today. As always, our podcast, like, subscribe, follow Twitter, Instagram, all those things. Thanks for listening. Remember, ABC, always be cradling. Thanks, guys.